of a shot of winning. We can beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Draft Nerds. Tonight we are doing a part 2 of a position group. So in one of our earlier episodes we covered the early pick 2 edge rushers, the ones that are going to be in and around pick 2, and the second set of them, the kind of second tier of edge rushers, which will be there for in and around our second pick, around pick 16, or maybe even our pick around 33. If they fall, we're going to cover that group tonight. With me as usual are Ryan and Andy. How are you doing, boys?
All good, mate. Excited to get into this one. Yeah, this was an interesting one, wasn't it?
How'd you find it, Andy?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, we'll get into it in a minute. A kind of part of me is just happy to be done with the defensive line. I feel like we've been talking about it for ages. There's just so many of these guys this year, but I think this is going to be an interesting one.
I've learned a lot from doing it. I think having done the 2 different episodes, I definitely have a type of edge rusher that I like. And I don't know if you found the same. Have you found yourself angling towards a certain, I suppose, body type, a certain guy who brings different parts to their game? Are you finding that that's the way you're angling, Andy?
Yeah. I think based on I think it's always been based more for me on what the Jets' needs are. So I think kind of steered away more from those kind of more designated pass rushers this year in terms of what I like to see. So I'm far more looking for those kind of bigger guys who can seal the edge, which probably gives away a lot of what we're going to talk about. But yeah, that's where mine's been.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. And my reasoning for it is this. Let's say the production doesn't translate. I don't think that we're a team that has a good enough squad that we can bring in a specialized pass rusher. I think we need a guy who can show up on all 3 downs, because I don't think we have the personnel. We need somebody who can bring value all the time. And if they have a down game, look, you see last year with Will McDonald, a lot of his sacks happened in one game, and then he doesn't show up for a while. I think for the games where they don't get sacks or they're not as productive, you want them to be at least benefiting the run game, from a protection perspective or stop perspective. Ryan, were you kind of trending the same way?
Yeah, I wish I could say I liked all of these guys for different reasons, but as you say, when the production's not there, you expect to see some production in the run game, and some of these guys kind of lacked both, or at least one. So, yeah, I'm keen to chop this one up, to be honest.
Perfect. No, I think we're going to deviate from what we usually do. Usually we go by the PFF big board. We have 4 guys to cover tonight. We're going to go to the second guy on the board though. And our reasoning for that is, I think there's going to be debate about what position this person should play. So rank 14th on the PFF big board is Kendrick Falk. We did the defensive tackle group last week. We're doing the edge group this week that are in the same range. I think he might fall between the 2 poles. Andy did a deep dive on Falk. So Andy, I'm going to pass the ball to you. You can do your deep dive, and then we can kind of chop it up between us.
Yeah, it's not hard to see why people look at Falk and think he could slide inside on the defensive line. I mean, just his measurables, he's 6'6", he's 285 pounds. The guy's humongous, and he looks every inch of it as well. The arm length is there, the overall size. It's the kind of the dream of the guy you want on the defensive line. And I think that shows up in the way he plays as well. And the production, the production's interesting. Over his career at Auburn, he's racked up 80 run stops, 95 pressures, but only 13 sacks over that time, 9 of which actually came in a single season. They all came in 2024. So he's kind of bookended that with 2 sacks this year, two sacks in his first season. I think the thing that jumped out to me the most, because I watched quite a bit of Falk over the summer as well. He was a guy I was interested in and wanted to get a look at. There's a big kind of discrepancy between what you see between this year and last year. when you see him trying to rush the passer in 2025, for some reason, despite the size that he is, he seems to want to play with too much finesse. And I don't understand it at all, because he's got such a big frame and a big size and long arms. You just want him to use that. You just want him to get in there and get his hands on people and just push them back, because that's what he did so well in 2024. One of my big criticisms of him was that he was just trying to win with power and didn't really have a lot of pass rush moves about him. But he seems to have gone completely the opposite way this year, and he's trying to win in this very passive way. He's very willing to let offensive linemen get their hand on him first, or to go for a quick punch, and then he's trying to beat that with a quick swipe and then speed. But it just doesn't really work for him. And I don't know if he kind of heard some of the criticism last year and decided to try and build on things, but it was working better when he just used kind of the God-given talents that he has, but you kind of just want to see him doing it the way he was the previous year. One of the big problems, and it was the same in 2024, he doesn't have a lot of counter moves to his game. So if he goes in, it doesn't work. It's very easy for offensive linemen to kind of stymie him and just stonewall him, because he doesn't seem to have a plan B. And I feel like we've said that about a couple of guys this year, to be honest. Once that first move fails, they just kind of flounder and start pushing, and there isn't really a plan. There was a lot of talk about his production falling off when his alignments changed a little bit and Auburn started and asked him to play in a different way. The numbers don't particularly back that up in terms of him aligning either in the B gap or over the tackle. The numbers are pretty consistent between 2025 and 24. He does play a little bit more towards the inside, so kind of that sort of more 5 tech when he's over the tackle, the 3 tech when he's in the B gap. And so maybe that has hurt his production a little bit, but at his size, he should be able to win on the inside. So I don't really see that as much of an excuse. Where he really shines is in the run game, where he's just using his strength. He easily takes on double teams, just like any good interior defensive lineman would. His run game is completely solid. From a lot of the games I watched from this year, he wasn't getting a lot of tackles simply because the run wasn't going his way a lot, because the back looked at the gap, saw it wasn't there, and just went elsewhere. But one of the things that really helped to show on the film for him was how athletic he is and how quick he is, because he's really relentless in how he chases guys down. And whether it's a scrambling quarterback, running back trying to get to the edge, he's able, with very quick, very lateral, quick movements, to get to the other side, to get the outside and chase guys down. And that shows in some of the pass rush production as well, because some of his sacks from last year and the couple he got from this year, they weren't really clean win type of sacks. They were effort sacks, and there's another guy in our list for today to talk about with that as well. But he gets them with his athleticism and kind of how aggressive he is when he plays. So I think, for me, I can see why people think he would be better on the inside. You can see he's a better run defender, his size, all those sorts of things. For me, the question I would ask back to people is, what position do you consider John Franklin Myers to play? Because when I see Folk play, I see a lot of similarities in their game. And I think if he can improve on the pass rush side of things, because let's face it, JFM isn't a sack machine. He's got a consistent number of sacks that he gets every year, but it's not where his real skill is. And I think he's more of that very strong edge setting 5 tech defensive end who can kick inside when he needs to, but he can easily set the edge on early downs. So interested to see what you guys think, because I feel like you see him a little bit differently.
Pass it to you first, Ryan.
I'm just going to open by saying that JFM comparison is top tier, to be honest. I absolutely think he should sort of convert inside, especially as a DT on a 3 tech. If we're going to use different sets, I think he could be really handy, because I think he can potentially play anywhere across that line. He's only 20 years old, so I think he is still quite coachable. I think you can probably still put some size on him if you needed to, but you wouldn't want to lose any of that athleticism, because those sort of backside pursuits where he's chasing people down, he just looks monstrous coming up behind people, and you wouldn't want to lose that, I don't think. I genuinely liked Falk for the most part. My concern is the weaknesses in his game, where he tries that, as Andy said, he tries those finesse moves. I mean, I saw him try a few times a spin move, and the spin move was the most labouring thing. It was like the Titanic turning, and it was totally unnecessary, as he had the edge beat on the player, and he doesn't really have a bend, despite the fact that on that particular occasion he had the edge beaten on him. His ball rush is good when he utilises it correctly. His hand placement is very good and very consistent. He's pretty much got a swim and a rip, and that's it outside of that. So I think with that, I'd like to see him operate inside more so than outside. I don't believe he's a natural true pass rusher. The 5-tech thing that Andy was saying, I think would ring true. I don't know whether we would play those kind of looks. So if we were to be looking at him, I'd be looking at him as a DT with some rotational use at nose tackle if you needed to. But I will say, even though he can stop the run, I think he needs to read it better. I don't think his football IQ is necessarily there. And when he gets double teamed, he doesn't win very often.
I'll just kick in there. So kind of similar. I don't think he's as fluid as JFM. I'll say that he's far more rigid. I think he moves more similar to Peter Woods than he does to JFM. And Ryan kind of said something to me the other day, making a comp to him and Peter Woods, and I just can't unsee it since he said it. The thing about him is, as I watched his film, I don't think I saw him work the edge maybe more than once or twice. I can't even remember him doing it. Like when he's set you up in the outside, which is maybe 50-60% of the time, he's trying to cut into the B gap every time. So even when he's in pass rush sets as an edge, he's trying to cut inside like a defensive tackle or a 3-tech would. So he's trying to work that piece of the O-line all the time. I think some of it is because I think he loves the fight. He loves the hand fight. He loves to connect with the offensive lineman. He loves contact. I think he loves the battle of it. You know, he's a big, tough, strong guy who I think loves football, but he's not finesse. And I think you need a bit of finesse in the edge. He can't dip his shoulder and go around an offensive tackle. I just think he's too big. I think he moves too slow. But I just think he'd be a really, really good 3-tech. You know, I think if I was grading him as a 3-tech, I'd be grading him higher than if I was as an edge. And the Peter Woods thing, right? So we spoke last week about Peter Woods in 2024, the first half of the year, operated as an edge rusher. And I described him at the time as being, you know, a bit too slow, probably suited better inside, and his production went up when he went inside. I think Falk is the same. I just think he's almost too cumbersome on the edge, and he's trying to cut inside anyway into where the 3-tech is. He's trying to win there. He's trying to battle there. His instinct is to cut into that gap. So it's almost square peg round hole, putting him somewhere where he needs to have a bit of natural bend, where he's trying to build on the toolbox. And you both said like the spin move is like so slow. It's by the time he gets around, the ball is gone, you know. So I just don't think he has the pace or the agility to work the edge. I think you can put him out there situationally, but I think he's a 3-tech for me. And I think he'd be a good 3-tech as well. I think he'd enjoy it. He looks like he'd enjoy playing there more, because it's like he's trying to get into that position even when he's on the edge. So that was my take when I was watching him tape. It's like, oh, there he goes again into the B gap almost every time. That's what I was kind of seeing. Any kind of counter to that, Andy, do you think?
I think my only counter to that would be that I'm not sure that is him doing that from a preference point of view. I think when you look at what Auburn were doing this year, I think that was very much what they asked him to do a lot of the time. I agree completely on things like the spin move. It's just not his thing at all. I think with Volk, for me, he's ranked a bit too high at the moment. I think part of what is causing people problems with him is how high he is on some people's boards. I don't think he should be where he is because there's still too much that he needs to improve on. But like Ryan pointed out, and I missed that out at the start, he is incredibly young. He's not. I think he will turn 21 maybe before the season
Next
starts.
September.
So literally he will turn 21 during the season. So he's still got a lot to kind of build on. So I think he should be lower than he is. I think he reminds me a little bit of who's the guy that the 49ers took last year? Michael Williams.
Yeah.
Similar sort of thing. He needs time, and I don't think you can take someone that high if they're going to need that much time to kind of develop and kind of build a role in a defense. But yeah, I really like him. I agree with, I think it was Ryan who said, I'm not sure he's much of a fit for what the Jets need at the moment. I think the other guys who we will probably take earlier are a better fit than Falk is.
Yeah, we need somebody who can come in and elevate the team, whereas he needs to go into a team that will elevate his skill set. So it's probably a reverse.
Yeah.
I think he's one of those guys that could have benefited from doing another year at school, to be honest. Like I've got no qualms about him declaring at this stage. I think he's at a level he can come into the NFL. I think he does need work, but I think he would have really benefited from one more year in college, I think, especially given his age. Like he's got time to grow, work on that body frame and see what kind of weight he can work with and be sort of more dynamic and more explosive and stuff. But yeah, I think for me, I agree with it. Like to me, I would convert him to a 3 tech. And to be honest, if you're telling me like if I've got to draft him as an edge, value wise, I'm thinking round 4. Like, but if you're telling me I can draft him as a DT, then I'm probably thinking that he's top 50.
I'm in the exact same place. Maybe not round 4, maybe round 3, but maybe round 4. But like second half of round 2, I think as a DT I would have him because I think he's like almost identical tape to Peter Woods. I do have a question for you on him, Andy, based on last year, right? So we have to kind of comment on what happened with him last year. His production, right? His total pressures last year were 45 versus 30 this year. He 9 sacks last year, 2 this year, 5 hits on the quarterback, 1 this year, 31 hurries and 27 hurries last year. And his alignments were, if anything, he was working inside a little bit more last year than this year. If you watched some of his tape last year, I'm not sure if you did. I didn't. I'm just wondering what you saw that was different there.
Like I said, I think Auburn asked him to play quite a different role. The alignments don't really tell the full story with that. I think, like you commented on with how you saw him kind of cut back inside a lot, I think that happened a lot more. If you look at him last year, he was given far more kind of freedom to kind of just attack on a lot of downs. And I think that shows not just in his sacks and things like that. It's in, like you say, the pressures, in the forced fumbles that he got, the TFLs he was able to get in the run game as well. I think Auburn just changed philosophies a little bit this year with who they had on the defensive line, and Volk's numbers kind of took a bit of a hit with that. I mean, if people want to see what he was like last year, I'd say go and watch the game against Cal, against Alabama, and maybe the Georgia game as well, because that really kind of showcases how high his production can be and kind of why he was so high on people's boards coming into this year.
I think he's still benefiting from last year's production where he is on the board this year, which is funny because other players, that's not happening with them then. So it's a funny one. I'm definitely going to go back and watch another game from last year just to see the different role, because I didn't get to just see the skill set that you're kind of talking about and potentially having there. So that's really, really good analysis. The other thing about him being a 3 tech for me was right because he is such a good run. He's really good instinct in the run game as well. You know, he's a really good run defender, and he's going to bring you benefit there. So if the things that kind of tick the boxes for me there, good run defender, likes to contact. Like when you're a defensive tackle, you're one-on-one contact with the O-lineman every time. And he seems to like that or be good at it at least. Like I said, the battle. So yeah, I that's where I would put him as well. I just couldn't unsee it. Interesting. Any closing points, Ryan?
No, not really. Just if I was to pick him for us, it would be pick 44, but I think we'd pick a better fit before that.
Okay. Yeah, that's where I'd be as well. Just to say as well, just something I noticed on my notes, his best game was against Auburn, and he was basically 50-50 split working inside in that game. It was one of the games where he was working more as a DT. Just something that I probably should have called out. Any closing points, Andy,
Sorry,
on...
who were they against? Sorry, Timmy, because you said Auburn, who he plays for.
Do you know what? That's what I wrote on my notes. But I have the numbers in front of give me 2 seconds. It was against Oklahoma. So I'm just updating my notes. Good shout. Glad you corrected me there. Oklahoma. Okay. Any closing points, Andy?
No, I think we've done it to death on that one. So should we
Okay.
get into the why
Perfect.
nines?
Perfect. So we'll move over to, I suppose, the guys who are more prototypically on the edge in that case. Ryan, do you want to take it away with Howell?
Yeah, so Cassius Howell, 6'2", 248 pounds, 22 years old, being talked about a lot by Trevor Sikkema over at NFL Stock Exchange as a potential to go top 15, specifically 15 to the Buccaneers. So I was pretty excited to get into this guy, and everybody told me about how quick he was, how athletic he was, how explosive, how productive, everything else. So eyes open, I went in. I could see that explosive first step. He absolutely, it rockets off the line, and he does win with speed. His acceleration really just gets him past his man, and his lateral speed is incredible too. The issue is that I don't see a lot outside of him winning with speed. He doesn't really win with power. He doesn't really win with hand placement very often. His arms are particularly short, and he's got quite a sort of narrow frame, so his wingspan isn't great. So against longer armed tackles, he does get beaten, but he tends to set up incredibly wide, like in order to get a run on these guys and almost check their footing at times. To me, I think he's going to measure him with less than 31-inch arms, which would be a real concern, to be honest, because he doesn't show that he's got the hand skill to win despite those short arms. Where people talk about Bane's short arms and kind of go, look, it's not a problem because you can see he still wins in different ways, like the arm length doesn't hinder him. Well, whereas you can see on Cassius Howell's tape that his arms do hinder him at times. So yeah, if a tackle gets hands on his chest, he just doesn't win. I didn't see a great run defender. I felt he lacked awareness in coverage as well at times, like when he was having to drop. I just felt he looked a bit lost. He is productive, 11.5 sacks. Unfortunately, like, it's kind of inflated. Utah State and Mississippi State represent 5.5 of those. His others came against a pretty poor Florida side, and a few other SEC teams, LSU, I think, where they weren't necessarily at their best, some of these teams. So I think he's a nice player on paper, but I think he's Will McDonald 2.0, and he offers nothing new to this team. And I couldn't justify a top 16 pick for him if that's his projected value.
And that is his projected value, really. And you called it out, Sikkema in particular is beating the drum for him to be their pick, and he's a Buccaneer fan as well. So
And respect those guys' opinions totally. Like, I absolutely think what they do is great, but I mean, I'm not there with this guy.
And PFF have him 16th on their board as well, which I think is 15th, sorry, which I think is flattering for him as well. Andy, what are your takes on Cassius Howell?
I just had like a couple of very brief notes on Cassius Howell. Speed rush goes burr was the first one. That's literally all he does. I'm glad that Ryan mentioned it because it means I don't have to go on about it for 20 minutes. He's clearly very athletic. He's got a great burst. He's fast off the snap, which means he gets a good step on some of these tackles that he goes up against. NFL tackles will figure him out really quickly. He aligns. Ryan was saying about how far outside he aligns in his entire college career. Looking at the numbers on PFF, he aligned over the tackle 4 times in 3 years. Literally every other snap is outside of the tackle or so far away that he's considered off ball. He's got nothing else in his game at all. I think one of you guys shared something before in our group chat, Todd McShay talking about him, and saying that he can take on double teams, and he can't. He is so easily moved in the run game, it's not even funny. And I know the ability to get sacks is kind of where the money is, which is why edge rushers who can rush the passer but can't really defend the run particularly well will always go higher than guys the other way round. But for me, when it comes to defensive ends and edge rushers, I always want to see at least a baseline of run defense before any of this sort of stuff matters. It was baffling when we picked Will McDonald as high as we did a couple of years ago. I'm just Cassius Howell is not for me at all.
Yeah, and I very similar to all of you. That first step he has is excellent. I think he's got great feet, and I think that's what helps him. Like, he kind of almost runs like a route runner towards because he sets so far back. He does a jink move almost before he gets to the offensive tackle, and I think his footwork is what really helps him. But his hand usage is just not there. He's got no hand fighting. He's totally overpowered. The short hands, it's very obvious. And I think that affects his run defense as well. He doesn't have the wide span. He completely whiffed on a runner. I watched the game versus Arkansas, and it led to a huge gain where it was an easy close on the runner for a tackle, and he just whiffed on it and nearly gave away, 50-yard touchdown. So just that power is not there for him to be able to battle when it comes to the run game, or when it comes to power against an offensive tackle. I think you're right. I think they're going to figure him out. He's just going to be a third down guy in the league, and I think at this value, at this point, I'd be needing a lot more production. He'd need to be like a David Bailey production for me to be kind of considering him here, to be honest, considering he doesn't offer anything else. I think Will McDonald is a perfect comp for him. We saw last year as well, and we talked about it at the start of the podcast, where you have a guy who's like that. If they go through a rough patch, you get nothing from them. And he's an A for effort guy, but he just doesn't have that killer instinct that you need, I think, to be a first round edge rusher. So he wouldn't be a first rounder for me. I don't know where you would rank him, Ryan. What kind of, I suppose, where on the board would you rank him?
I am probably around the 75 range. I think I've put round 2 to 3 talent, so yeah, 75, let's say.
Okay, how about you, Andy?
I'm not quite as low. I think guys who can rush the pass like him are always going to go a little bit higher. Where did the guy from Boston College go last year?
Who are you talking about?
I can't remember his name. I think the Cowboys took the guy out of Boston College, Ezeraku.
Yeah,
he was in the second round, I believe.
Yeah,
Donovan Ezeraku.
It was, yeah. That's kind of where I see him going.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with that range. To be honest with you, that's where I kind of would have him as well. Bottom half of the second round, just for the reasons you say. But on my Jets big board, I just wouldn't even be looking at him, to be honest. He's not what we need. His coverage as well, I think one of you mentioned as well, is just not there. And if we're a wide 5, you're going to need him in coverage at times, and I just don't think he's capable of that either. So I don't think we're a good fit for him at all. I'd prefer Falk to him, I put it that way. And they kind of fall in the same range for me, I suppose, on the table, so into the second round. Okay, so that takes us next. Any closing points, Ryan, on Hull before we move on?
No, I just to follow up, just to say that I don't see a need for us to draft him anywhere really. He doesn't change our team at all, I don't think.
And you, Andy?
No, same. We've already got a Will McDonald. I don't see why we need another one.
And I went into his evaluation and I'd kind of heard that comp beforehand, and I was like, maybe we could have two. If he's a bit better than McDonald, maybe we can have two really electric guys on the edge on a 5-man front. But there's not enough there. I think like Will McDonald is maybe a better player than him, you know. Okay, that takes us next up to Akeem Mesidor, who's 21 on the PFF big board. He's one of the two players I really liked, actually. So I think he really showed up as well in the playoffs, you know, so he's a big game player. 6 years in college is obviously the big concern. That's the big talking point. 4 of those in Miami. So he's an older prospect. He's going to be 25 at the start of the season. So I think I think he's, for me, a top 15 player, skill set wise. And I like somebody who can come in and cause a bit of chaos. Even if they don't get to the pass, they're knocking guys off, or they're closing run lanes, or they're causing havoc. And he's one of those. But obviously the age is going to be a problem. By the time he finishes his rookie contract, he's going to be 30, and that's going to be a concern for people. And we'll debate that, I suppose, at the end. So he started his college career as a 3-tech. Miami used him a little bit there this year. PFF showed that they showed him on 10 reps, but like I saw some games where they used him 6 or 7 times in the 3-tech role. So I think their numbers are off on that. I think he was used there a bit more. There was 1 or 2 reps where he was at the 3-tech and Ruben Bain was just outside him, and like they're just so hard to stop when they're together on that side. So that's what you're getting potentially. If you take Bain at 2, you take him at 16. Like I think you're changing how people are going to have to plan for your team. So you're giving yourself a bit of a culture change, right? We'll say. So he's an impact player, 3-down defender as well. He can win both in pass and run sets. He's a really high motor. He never gives up on any play. He'll shed the blocker and he will follow the runner. And almost at the end of every play, you'll see him in and around the ball. If he doesn't get there, he's close by. The number 3 is flashing all the time. Really slippery, I would say. Good escapability. So quite often, even if he locks up with the offensive tackle, he'll slip out. As opposed to shedding, he can do that too, but he's more slippery, I would say. He will slip out of the rep and get towards the ball or get towards the QB or close the pocket that way. You're not going to see a game where you don't see the number 3 flashing on the screen. That's for sure. He's a really good first step, fluid hips for his size, and he's good lateral movement, I think, which is why his run game instinct is so good. So the instinct with the lateral movement makes him a really good run defender. His hands are good as well. He uses chops, swipes, some hand fighting, mixed with a really lethal shoulder dip, which really gets him out of reps and towards the passer or the run, or very often. He used a glorious swipe, moved cut inside through traffic for a sack against Indiana. So if you're going to look for a highlight from him, it was beautiful. It was just really nicely executed. I'd like to see a little bit more of that. The swipe move, he doesn't use it too much. He likes to dip his shoulder more, but he has it in his arsenal. I'd be really interested to see his arm length, because he doesn't like a bull rush. It's not part of what he does. He doesn't drive back the OT. He kind of is more slippery, or he fights off. I'd be interested to see in the combine what his arm length looks like. It potentially could be shorter as well, I think. What have I next? He is he's effective as well in the B gap, which I kind of touched on, him being a 3-tech. I've seen people question his power, but the way he can shed a blocker, he doesn't bull rush. I think that might be down to his arms. I think he has the power. The way he moves around and causes chaos, I don't think he could do that without the power that seems to have, to me at least anyway. He shows up in the big games, like I said, a big game player. The only major knock for me definitely is his age. Do you take a guy that can impact you for the next 5 years, or do you take a young guy with the upside who you can get multiple contracts from? You'll probably get a second contract out of him as well when he's 30, but you just don't get the same longevity out of him. But there's a lot to like, I think. I'm going to go to you first this time, Ryan. What did you think of Messidor?
Yeah, look, you've hit everything really, haven't you? I had him described as a demonic pass rusher. I felt he had a really high motor, always wanted to be getting into the backfield, like every effort to get into the backfield. He's got a lot of game time under his belt, and I get the concern over age. I literally wrote age, don't care, on my notes. This is the guy you're getting though. He might polish some bits up with coaching, but you're drafting this guy. There's no projection here, in my opinion. I think you're seeing what you're getting, and I think he'll translate well. Do you want me to leave the part, my feelings on the age and stuff like that till we
No,
debate it afterwards?
go for it.
So, like you say, do you go for a young guy, you can get multiple contracts out, but realistically, for where I value him, where I'd take him, pick 33. If I said to you, like right now, that the projected production that we're likely to get from this guy in 4 years on a contract that's probably going to be about 20 million, and you could trade pick 33 for a guy that gave you that on that kind of money deal, you'd do it, right?
Totally. The exact same thing went through my head today, but I don't think people look at it that way. But totally, absolutely, and you wouldn't get them for that value.
No, the contract at that, even though that age, the contract is never going to be at that money for that age. So you're getting the experience, you're getting the leadership. He's got tons of playoff experience. He's played as high as you can really go in college level multiple times. As much as I don't respect the ACC at times, the playoffs are a different kettle of fish, and he's been there back-to-back years and competed at a high level. So you can't argue that. So for me, pick 33, I would take him if he's there, if we haven't already satisfied the edge.
Okay, agree with all of that. The other thing as well, I suppose, about him, and I kind of touched on him doing 3-tech before, I think I saw a chart somewhere the other day where it talked about the Detroit hybrid defense, and they will move from a 4-man front to a 5-man front. And we saw that happening in Miami, and he was able to move around. Like, he can be out wide, he can be in that 3-tech. I just think that on third down, he gives you loads of options, and I just think he'd be very hard for other teams to plan against. And I think that that's what you're getting, Andy, where were you on Akim Messidor? Were you as high on him?
Yeah, I like Macedor a lot watching him. I think he wins with a nice variety of different ways. He's not kind of a one-dimensional player like we've talked about with a few of these other ones. He's got a really nice jump step to get outside of tackles quickly, and then a nice burst to kind of take him around the edge as well. Like I say, he's clearly got strength as well as that speed. I was worried that I was going to turn on the tape and watch someone who was all speed, but I think he's got strength in his game and against the run as well as the pass rush. There is a lot of, because of that kind of, and I like the way Ryan used the word demonic to kind of talk about him, because he is just kind of all over the place all the time. He's constantly chasing guys down. That my only little thing with him is, from what I saw, a lot of production with him is that more effort sack and cleaning things up. Because he is constantly chasing and constantly going after guys. When the QB is evading Bane or looking around to see if he can throw the ball away, Messidor is always there to just clean it up. And you shouldn't knock that kind of production because it's important to get, but I think it is just something to be aware of. I think taking him at the top of the second is probably the ceiling for him for me. Because I think, as much as I agree that one contract is really all you probably need, I think given how long he's been in college, where he is now, he is what you see is what you get player. You're not projecting. There's not another ceiling there to tap into. I think he's probably a player where what you see of him now is what you're going to get in the NFL, and he's going to come in with a really high floor level, but then not really go anywhere else after that. I don't think there's anything untapped in Messidor watching him play. Whereas with the others, there's something you can hang your hat on to say, if we can unlock this or unlock that, he'll reach a new level in his game. So I think he's a solid kind of rotational player, but I don't see him being someone who will one day be, a top 10 defensive end in the league.
Do you think he could come in and give you 10 sacks year one?
Maybe 10. I'd probably err the side of caution, say more like somewhere in the range of 8 to 12. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that will be it. That will be him for the rest of his career, probably.
I think that's okay though. That's what I think he is. I don't think any of the four we have today have maybe a ceiling that's beyond that though. Maybe, and we'll touch on that maybe after we talk about the TJ Parker. But do you see any of them maybe being better than that potentially, Andy?
I think on a pure production basis, you can always see someone who's like that third down guy like Howell. As much as I wouldn't take him, I think if that's what you're looking for, because that's what we kind of hope that Will McDonald will turn into if you just leave him in that role and just let him go after it. But yeah, you're right. Probably none of them are going to be that guy.
Yeah. What did you think, Ryan? Anything further to add there? Let's see our mute. We lost Ryan.
Sorry, it cut out at the end there. I missed I didn't realise you were going to me.
That's sorry. Just Messidor, I suppose. What we were talking about was he's probably a 8 to 12 sack a year guy straight away in the league. And it kind of led to the conversation then, I suppose, of the four today. That's kind of, for me, that's kind of the ceiling for all of them, really.
Yeah, I mean, I am fairly similarly judging TJ Parker on what I've seen as well, to be honest. So those are the top two of these four we've done, in my opinion. And that's probably the production I would want from them. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I'd be the same. So where would you rank him on? What range would you rank him in?
So I think there's a good chance he'll get picked up at the back of the first. There's every reason that Sean Payton might like him, but I would take him at 33. I think he's going to end up being probably 25 to 40 range, somewhere in there. I can't see him really going past the Titans if they don't take Bailey.
I don't think he gets past New England. I just think for a team like that who's just coming off a Super Bowl appearance, he's going to come in and make a dominant impact on their run defense as well. When they're missing their nose tackle drops off, he's somebody who can help them there as well. I think that's his floor draft wise. To me, I probably like him a bit more than ye do. If we took Bain at 2 and took him at 16, if the board fell a certain way and the premier guys are gone and we decided to take him, I would have no issues with it, to be honest, because I think that he's as good as anybody you're potentially going to take outside of the 12 marquee players in the draft. Or am I mad, Andy?
Yeah, that's a little mad for me. I wouldn't think about him that high.
Okay. I have a question for you all later as well that teases that nicely. Okay, so for me, I think he's probably a 20 to 30 player. But if we reach for him, I'd be okay with it. But if he's there 33, I would be very excited to take him there. Okay, that takes us to TJ Parker next. Ryan, did you say you gave range? You did. TJ Parker. So as Ryan kind of alluded to, where are my notes gone on TJ Parker there? I kind of felt similarly about him as I did to Messidor. I think that they kind of offer the same stuff. They have different way of attacking the defensive line, but I think you're getting the same return. So I found him to be a really fun player to watch, first and foremost. 6'3", 260, about the right size, plays bigger than that. To me, and he looked like he's 280 when he's out there. He looks strong, give me him every day, of the week over say someone like a Peter Woods. I just think he's going to have more of an impact on the overall defense. And I think he'll go probably in a similar-ish range. He's really long arms. It's very noticeable as soon as he's out there. I think he's a versatile scheme fit as well. He's a 3-down pass rusher, which is what I'm looking for. I think he could potentially work the 3-tech if he puts on a bit of size as well. But I think he'd basically be an outside edge guy. He did an occasion play on the inside for Clemson, and he looked fine there. He has the power to do it. He rushes from a standing stance mostly. Like almost every Clemson player had a regression in production year over year, especially sack-wise. Just kind of talk about that. The year just gone, he had 6 sacks, 11 QB hits, and 24 hurries. And that's down from 2025 where he had 12 sacks, 11 hits, and 28 hurries. So his sack production halved year over year, which is definitely disappointing. But when I watched the tape in 2025, he still looked electric out there, I would say. And he finished the season stronger than he started, I would say, as well. Very strong game. If you're going to watch one game, watch him against South Carolina at the end of the year. He had a great game there. He's really good hand usage. He has limited hand usage toolbox, I would say. He only has like a stab move and a bit of a swipe. So he doesn't have a lot of trickery, but he uses his hands really well. I would say he's really strong hands. He's got a shed move as well to go with that bull rush. He lowers his body and uses the edge really well as well, I think. And he's violent and explosive would be the best way to describe him. Like when he's out there, he's giving you a hard day if you're on the offensive line. If you're lining up against him, you know you're in for a long day. And he's, in fairness to him, he keeps up the impact all game as well. And he'll drive the offensive tackle straight back and he'll impact the pocket, very regularly. Now, he doesn't have a lot of bend. He's quite rigid looking. That's why I think, I said he looks like he's 280 out there. He doesn't have that kind of fluidity of the hips, I would say. But his instincts are very good as to where the QB is and where the runner is. And he would push the tackle that direction and he'll get kind of towards where the ball is at. And that motor and resilience, again, similar to Messidor, and this is why I kind of like them both. Neither of them would give up on any play. They keep going and keep going. And that resilience is definitely there. So on the run, as a run defender, I think you need that as well. And I think he's a really good run defender as well. Disruptive. He'll collapse a pocket or he's good lateral movement as well. And he'll do everything he can to get to the runner. He just is, hair on fire that way. Pushes around the offensive tackles I have here. If you need a game-winning stop as well, he's your guy, right? I think he pins back his ears and he's going to give it everything to get home and win the game for you on third down at the end of the game. He's a guy I'd like to have out there. And the tackle just has to work for every inch against him. I suppose the knocks on him, he's not a refined pass rusher. He doesn't have that slick pass rush toolbox. Like he is just very big and flexible. He doesn't have that and inflexible. He doesn't have the flexibility in twitch. He probably needs to add some more tools to the arsenal. But, again, he's a younger prospect as well. He's going to be 22 around the start of the season. So I think he's someone you can do that with. I don't think you can probably do much about his flexibility. It will be really interesting to see what he looks like in the combine, in the cone drills, for example. I don't know if he'll even do them because I don't think that's going to be what his thing is going to be. I would love to see him using his long arms more for swipe moves. When I think about swipe moves in this class, you think about Caleb Banks using his long arms to just do a swipe move and get past guys. I think that's something that he could easily add to his arsenal. So yes, strength of schedule as well this year obviously dropped off, similar to Peter Woods, and his production dropped off too. But we've talked about it. Clemson seems to have been, I don't know what happened there. When you think about the talent they had, they should have been much better. So that's kind of it. I think he's a good culture guy. He's going to come in and fight for every inch, punch offensive linemen in the face on every play, and that's what you're getting from him. I'll go to Andy first this time. Andy, what did you think of TJ Parker?
I think you've covered it really well with Parker. I suppose my only couple of things I was going to bring up about him is I think out of all the guys we've watched for this one. I think he was easily the most kind of intelligent player. I saw him play with a lot of kind of, he seemed to read what was going on really well, which helped him a lot in games. I think he, like you say, there's a lot of effort there as well that goes with it. And I think I like the way as well. I know it's nothing to do with the film, but when he showed up to the Senior Bowl, I think he went to the Senior Bowl with the intention of reminding everyone that he was a step above the competition that was there. And I think my only question with that is kind of why we didn't see that same level of difference during the season. Because my biggest question mark with Parker would be, I think he's a very good player. I think he's got a rounded skill set. I'm just not, there isn't one thing with him. Like with everyone else that we've talked about, there's one thing that I can say that's what he does best. That's kind of his thing. With Parker, he just seems to be very good at everything, but I'm not sure what he's very good, amazing at. And so my question about him is where the ceiling is with Parker. Is there something else he can get to, or is he just a kind of very good player? Yeah, and that's all I really had to add. I thought you gave a really succinct summary of Parker.
That's a really good point. I suppose, would you say, and they don't play the same way, but would you say Jermaine Johnson would be kind of like that too, where I don't think JJ has the ceiling we thought he had coming out of college. Would you kind of put him in the same kind of bucket that way?
Yeah, it's a good shout actually, because that was one of the big questions with JJ when he was coming out, is what is the actual ceiling with him? Is there anything else to him?
Okay, very interesting. What range would you put him in, Andy?
So just based on where he is at the moment, I think what he's shown you he can do, he is probably kind of the 15 to 20, even as far as 25 range. So I've got quite a wide range of him, so 15 to 25, depending on how teams decide to go on the day.
Yep, okay. I do all my ranges and kind of tens as well. We've a lot of guys who fall into the 20 to 30 range in the podcast we've done, so we can talk about that a bit afterwards, a separate conversation. But he falls a bit ahead of that view, which is good. Ryan, how about you? What did you think of TJ?
I really liked his tape, to be honest. As you said, he was a fun player to watch. When we saw him in the Senior Bowl, we talked about that long arm, and was it consistent? Was it good? Was it good enough? Was it even enough for the NFL? What I saw on the tape is that long arm does show up. It gives him a tremendous arc. His athleticism, whilst he doesn't necessarily have the bend, he creates an arc, and he's got the athleticism to make the backside pursuit of the quarterbacks at times and make up that extra ground. I really like the way he hit through players. Like, you see some players will tackle players to hit them as they sort of encounter them. Some other players, they absolutely go through the player. They're tackling the player behind that player kind of thing. And he absolutely does that. I've written down the phrase here, relentless pursuit, and loves to strip the ball. And I thought you pretty much said it almost word for word. I've got written here, good hand placement, needs more tools. And the other thing I did put as well is I put he's got sort of a mid-range get off, but he's got really choppy, busy feet. So he tends to start churning sort of movement quite quickly and starts getting the tackles guessing. So that does tend to give him an advantage, but I think he could be quicker off the mark. I'd be really interested to see what that 10-second split is compared to his his 10-yard split over his 40-yard split at the combine. Final note I had on him was that he plays with eyes up and he plays with his eyes open, and I really appreciate that, because I think that's what that high IQ taps into as well. So 20 to 30 range for me.
Yeah, really good player. So for me as well, I'm trying to think, I probably would have himself a Mesut or similar, but obviously with his age profile, being so much younger, obviously if it was the two of them there, you'd probably take him.
That's what bumps him for me.
Yeah, so like I probably would be like Andy, the 15 to 25 range, and I said I'd Mister the 20 to 30 range, and it's just on age, because I think they're quite similar in what you get. Like you get the hair on fire, you get the run defense, you get the three down guy, culture changer. So I like them both for that reason. I think that's probably everything on those guys, unless you have any closing statements, Andy.
No, that's everything.
Yeah.
Cool.
How about you, Ryan?
No, I'm all good.
So am I right in saying we've probably consensus where you've Parker first, Messidor second, then Falk, then Howell? Are we all in agreement there?
Yeah, that's exactly how I've got him.
I'd very, very closely flip Falk and Messidor for me,
Okay.
just because the run game is important and youth matters. He says as a 42-year-old man, but youth does matter. So yeah, it just bumps Falk over Messidor for me.
Okay. Very good. So quite close. But okay, good. Before we've a few minutes left, so we're tight enough on time, but we've a couple of things I kind of just want to talk about. I think it was Robert on the UK and Ireland chat asked a question the other day. He was asking me about Arvel Rees, sack production, what it looked like. And it kind of stuck in my head because, you know, we talked about it on that podcast. It was in around 21%, basically his pressure to pass rush, snap production. And I went away and I looked through his 8 sacks, 7.5, depending where you're seeing it, 8 with PFF. So his first sack against Texas was off a blitz. His second sack, which was against Ohio, was off a blitz. His third sack was against Washington, a blitz. His fourth sack was against Minnesota, which was an edge rush pass set off the edge. His fifth sack was against Illinois, which was a blitz from the outside. Sixth against Illinois was a blitz again in the inside. Wisconsin blitz in the inside. And against PSU, blitz from the outside. So 7 of his 8 sacks came from a blitz as a linebacker. So I think that's something that is not being talked about enough in the media. Everybody's talking about his sack production from the edge, but it's from a blitz. I think that's something that just needs to be kind of called out a bit more. Any thoughts on that? I'll go to you first this time, Ryan.
Yeah, it was what we were discussing between us earlier, wasn't it? And it just felt like the number was kind of a bit off when we spoke, and to sort of suggest that we'd both seen on tape that it felt like there was more blitzes in there. I just think you can't. He doesn't appear to have a true position right now, and if you're drafting him as an edge rusher, he's not good enough to pick at number 2. And if you're drafting him as a linebacker, he's not good enough for a pick at number 2. So whilst he might be the highest upside guy in this draft because of his athleticism and his ability to play both positions, potentially at a very high standard one day, for me, the ceiling might be there, but it's way too far down the line for us to be walking down there. I like the kid. I think he's got a lot of talent, but this isn't a project that we can start, I don't think, because AG won't survive long enough to coach this guy up.
I'd agree. How about you, Andy?
Yeah, it's why the whole him coming in and being an edge from day one. There's a bit of a pipe dream. It's a project like Ryan just said, and it's a projection as well. You're projecting what you can see and how well he plays off the edge, but the production it is not there. I kind of think he does have a position at the moment, and people just don't want to admit that it's outside linebacker, and that's kind of where he's going to play his best game. Because people want him to be good enough to take it too, but unfortunately that position doesn't get taken there. So yeah, I think it's a good piece of work because it's something that needs calling out and looking at a little bit more closely than people seem to be wanting to at the moment.
I think everybody wants the next Micah Parsons, and I think they're overthinking it a bit, to be honest. Okay, one closing question because we're quite tight on time now. We try to keep it to an hour. I'll go to you first this time, Andy. So we've talked through basically the major position groups that are our, needs for the Jets at 16. And we talked through most of the prospects for wide receiver now, linebacker, edge, and defensive tackle that will go in that range. So assuming that the top 12 players that we probably all know are the top 12 players are gone, who are you taking at 15? Because almost everybody we have talked about in those groups, that second level group, we all said 20 to 30 range almost for the top guys. So where would you land with it? Who are you taking?
I think it's 16. Obviously, ignoring who we pick at 2, because we don't know that for the purposes of this exercise, I'd still lean more towards taking a wide receiver. So Boston for me at 16. If for any reason we didn't take an edge early on, I'd be happy with Parker or maybe Lee Hunter, but Boston would be the top one for me.
Okay. How about you, Ryan?
Well, I'm going to lock in our number 2 pick as Sonny Styles because that is the best linebacker in this draft, and we need one. And to pair with him at pick 16, I'd be taking Lee Hunter. But that being said, you could probably talk me into TJ Parker there.
I think the 3 players for me as well who I'd be talking about there are Boston, Lee Hunter, and TJ Parker. I'd probably take Boston because I think that we're going to find it harder to pick up a wide receiver at 33. And I think one of the defensive tackles or one of the edges that we would be happy enough to have are going to probably land there. I think that there's just a few more of them. I don't know if you've noticed, but when we're doing mock drafts recently, the wide receiver pool is starting to close up very quickly by the time we get to 33. So I'd probably take Denzel Boston as well. I think he's him or Parker the least of a reach, I would say, at that point. And I'd be happy Lee Hunter too. They'd be my 3. But I'd probably take Boston.
We'll be absolutely fine because we're taking Antonio Williams at 44.
Do you know what? That'd be fine too. We could do with somebody in the slot who can stretch the field. We need to find out who's going to be throwing the ball before we find out if we need a guy to stretch the field, I suppose. Any closing points from you, Andy?
No, just excited to be taking Sonny Styles at 2.
You know, I wouldn't hate it. Got to say, he's my best. For me, he's the best non-quarterback in the class, I would say.
Yeah, totally agree. He's 100% the pick at number 2 for me right now.
I don't know if I can do it yet, just because of positional value. But if we do it, I wouldn't hate it. Would you agree with that, Andy? Is he your top non-QB?
He's getting that. I think I've still got Bain as my number 1 player, but Styles is, the more you watch him, the harder it gets to not make him the number 1 player.
He's most likely, if you take a player or two and you pick a player that is most likely going to be an all-pro in the coming years, it's probably him or Caleb Downs. You know, so that's the conversation, and is it a reach then? Maybe not. Okay, good closing point. Any other closing points? No? Okay. We're gone a little bit over time, just gone over the hour. Brilliant conversation again today. Quite aligned. When I did my own analysis, I wasn't sure we would be so aligned, so kind of happy that we're seeing the same things. Really good podcast tonight. Thanks very much. Ryan, we're over time anyway, so where can we find you?
At that UK Gator guy, pretty much everywhere.
How about you, Andy?
Watching a Jay Halsey film. That's the only place I will be for a while now.
Just a little tease for next week. What's your handles?
Coffee and Jets on X and the same on Substack.
Perfect. And I'm Irish Jet, Irish_Jets on X. That's where you'll find me. Just closing out. Thanks very much for sticking with us to the end. If you've gotten this far, we've a jam-packed one next week because the combine is going to happen. We might even do a Monday podcast to talk about that, and we're probably going to talk about some of the safety class next week as well to get away finally from the defensive line. So excited for that, and looking forward to that conversation too. Thanks very much, boys.
Y'all know what to say. On 3. 1, 2, 3.